Hello, y'all. I just want to make a short video about how just broken our voting system is because okay, as you can see on the screen. Now these are instances in which Dems are misrepresented and underrepresented, and these are examples of when Republicans are underrepresented to show it is a bipartisan effort. As we saw, if any of y'all are keeping up with redistricting, then y'all would know that Illinois just came out with a map, not just, but it's had a map out that is so gerrymandered, it's ridiculous. Oregon also gerrymandered the heck out of their map. Who else? I imagine New York is going to gerrymander them, but also North Carolina gerrymandered their district so much. Texas, they weren't as aggressive as they could have been. It's the normal Texas way where they just short up made safer Republican districts and safer Democrat districts and took out competitive districts. So they're not as aggressive as they could have been, but some would consider them so aggressive. Ohio, if they have the ability to basically make all but 2 districts safe, like lean almost safe, and then the other 2 be, one of them is extra safe and the other one is technically lean. So I'm like, and that's why I'm like, gerrymandering is such an issue, that, as we've seen in North Carolina, 50% of people who voted in the House, this is for House elections, 50% of people who voted in the House elections voted for the Democrats and their Democratic candidate, but they only got 38% of the representation, and I aimed for higher amount of seats. And also some of the worst instances of it in larger states, because I understand how New Mexico only has 3 or Nevada only has 4. So how are you I can understand if 30% of the vote goes quote unquote wasted or thrown away, because it's hard to divide up smaller electoral votes and smaller number of districts, and eventually when you get to Vermont and Alaska, you only have 1, so inevitably a lot of votes are going to be quote unquote wasted. But then it's bad when you get to larger states, because they have sprawling populations, they have many people in their state, they have many districts. So one district could be you would only need in California, I think 2% to get a district or something, or under 2% for every district. So I'm 50% of them, 50% of people in the House elections in 2020 voted for the Democrats, and they got 38% of representatives. In Ohio, 42% voted Dem and 25% of representatives. In Illinois, 41% voted GOP and 27% voted got representatives. Oh no, the GOP is only represented by 27% of the representatives. And in California, 33% voted GOP and 20% of representatives, which means and I wanted to go for over 10, around over 10% voting gap, because Minnesota, though, their map is their 2020 election vote and results and Pennsylvania, they were some of the most one of the least vote differences ever. About the same amount of around the same percentage of people in Minnesota and Pennsylvania voted for Republicans and Democrats, and so Minnesota and Pennsylvania are split evenly among Republican and Democrat representatives. And Michigan is the same way. I believe Michigan is the same way. So those 3 states, I like those, and I think Wisconsin. So basically, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Minnesota are all. I like their 2020 election vote and results. Also, something else to notice is that our gerrymandering system is so intense. It's so intense, and I also recently came across this. Like, I've known about different voting systems, but I thought that a lot of them were like complicated, and who would ever want to do that? But then I saw this. I clicked on this article that was an article, but it was like, I think it was an article, and it was like a year ago, I believe. It was either last year or this year. But I remember clicking on an article and seeing that Maine had, it was either Maine, maybe it was Alaska. No, it was Alaska, where I believe they had passed, what's it called? Like, split voting, like, oh, what was it? It was Maine where in 2020 where they had their first split electoral votes, and it was Alaska in 2020 where they had their first ranked choice voting. That's where it is. Maine had their second election with ranked choice voting for all offices. I believe all offices, at least all statewide, like all state and federal offices. But that's what I am. I am in favor of ranked choice voting. I very much agree with it because I think it allows for people to be able to vote third party and still have a backup to fall on. So if someone wanted to vote for the Greens or the Libertarians, they can as their first choice, and then vote for the Democrats or the Republicans as their second choice, to be like, okay, because if enough people vote for that third party candidate, we would have a lot more third party candidates in Congress than we do. Also, in Maine, they passed it in 2018, and in 2020 they gained more independence, which is why I'm like there was the most I think in 2018 they lost 2 independents. In 2018 2020 they gained 2 back. So that's why I'm saying ranked choice voting really allows. Now maybe that is due to ranked choice voting, maybe it isn't. But even if it isn't, it still shows that people under a ranked choice voting system feel more comfortable to actually vote for people that they want. But yeah, that's just me. Yeah, these are some of the most egregious. There was one, I was going to put not Pennsylvania, I was going to put Massachusetts, because a full 21% of their people voted for the GOP, and they didn't get a single representative out of 9. But I was like, well, that's under the 10 representatives threshold that I set for myself, because I was like, I don't want anything less than 10. I don't want to do. So, and then I was gonna do Washington, but then it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So it was still bad. It was like 8 points, but that's not 13 or 14 or 17 or 12. So yeah. Anyways, that is my video, and mainly just, I do wholeheartedly believe in number one, changing the system of how we vote, because it is so not proportional, not not even proportional, but not representative. Like, literally, an example of this. Okay, so in 2020, Maine's second district, nobody had a majority of the vote. The Republican, I think, got 46%. The Democrat got 58 point something percent. So the Republican and Democrat were very close, and I think the other candidates got a total of like 8% for the independent candidates, for the two independents. Is that how that works? 8 or 10%. Basically, a lot of the remaining votes were for two independent candidates, and that was in the first round. And then in the second round, the Democrat won by like 1 point. So that's why I'm like, it already shows that a good like 10% or around 10% of people didn't like the Republican or Democrat candidate, and that they'd rather have someone else, which that is already insight into how people want a third choice. I don't want, and that was the first time that it was used, because the first time you use the ranked choice voting system, I imagine there's still a lot of people who are not comfortable voting for a party because either they don't trust the system, or they don't like it, or it's like, or that they want to continue what they've been doing. But I imagine Maine voters are now at least a little more comfortable, at least some of them are more comfortable with the idea after seeing the 2020 election in Maine 2nd District, voting for third party candidates. But I don't know. I don't live in Maine. I do live in Ohio though, and I would love it if that was brought to Ohio. But anyways, I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.